morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're at, ladies and gents. I am Kura Isagami, your resident tinkerer and Medarotter, and this is the Medarot News Network, bringing you a special coverage and retrospective over one of Medarot-S's most notable and best well-known collaborations over its 6 years of making friends with other franchises. ZOIDS itself has been a staple in a lot of major mecha designs, inspiration, and its source material where it's come from. But unfortunately, when it comes to its overall references, I am sadly not the guy you want to turn to for that information. But luckily for you, I have a special guest with me here tonight as we go over a retrospective of basically the entirety of all the ZOIDS collaboration that Medarot-S has had over its 6 years and made friends in a lot of different places. My dear buddy Phobos, it is a pleasure to have you here on the MNN with me tonight. How are you doing, my friend?
Hello, doing pretty well, actually.
That's good to hear, and I'm so glad that you were able to take some time out of your busy schedule to come spend time with me and talk about some mechanized animals for a little while. I was very excited for this collaboration once we got it officially on the books and talking about it, so I hope you're just as excited as I am.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is my bread and butter, just yammering on about Zoids.
100%, and it was actually funny because a friend of mine was the one who sent me your direction, say, "Hey, this is the resident Zoids guy on YouTube," and I'm like, "Huh, interesting." So I went to go look up your profile and found out you've been keeping up with the at least the recent collaboration with the different generations of Zoids. I'm like, "Huh, this might be a really interesting conversation," and well, here we are. So. It is very good to have you with me here on the MNN. Like I said, Phobos, thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule. So what I want to do first is kind of give you the floor for a little while to talk about who you are, what do you do, any socials that you want to plug in, any projects you're working on, just a little bit about yourself. So spotlight's all yours, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am Phobos. I am a Zoids PNG tuber, although I'll be a proper VTuber with my debut in May. But I basically just spam Zoid. There's been a lot to cover recently. I cover Zoid's news, I cover Zoid's lore, the animes, of which there's been 7 now, and a lot of fan people don't even know there's been that many. But I also spam. I spam them on every social media platform, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, everywhere.
Nice. That's actually really exciting, honestly. I do the same thing with the meta news and just a whole bunch of different places as well, so it's honestly really nice to find someone in another franchise community that does the same thing. It's always really cool. How long have you been doing this, Phobos?
That's a good question. Years. I started probably almost 10 years ago. I found that I had a certain knack for acquiring, like, really rare Zoids, or super, like, I got really lucky finding things, and so I just started amassing a collection of Zoids.
Oh, wow.
For those who haven't followed me yet, I have a big diorama room of over 300 Zoids in a big homemade diorama.
That's nuts.
Right, and it was more out of necessity. At first, I was just I was renting my dad's back bedroom, but then I realized, oh no, after the 100 Zoids mark, I can't live in a room with these anymore.
I can imagine when the collection overtakes the living space, that's where the problems start growing. I can see where you're coming from, but wow, that's really impressive. So you've been in the Zoid series and really getting into it for 10 years, or just the content creation part?
I mean, I liked it when I was a kid. I just think it didn't, like, become part of my life again until I was, had adult money and stuff.
Gotcha.
And then it was the TikTok switch. That's what it really did. A lot of toy collectors were swapping over to TikTok and making quick little short videos like, look at this cool shelf of things I've got, and here's what this is from. And I'm like, oh, I can do that.
Gotcha. That's really impressive, though, honestly, with branching out and trying other platforms like that, especially with the long tenure and history that you've had with the series. Starting with it as a kid, kind of going back to it when you get the adult money, much like you said. So that's honestly really cool. I have a lot of respect for folks that are able to stick with things like that and kind of turn it into their big passion. I have lots of respect for folks that do that, and I've spoken with lots of content creators, lots of VTubers and YouTubers that kind of have the similar story. But 10 years, honestly, that's some very impressive time. I mean, most of the VTubers I talk with and collab with usually no more than like 3 or 4 years typically. So that's very impressive. Okay, so the first question I have, as we were kind of arranging and putting this collaboration together to kind of set the stage, is I am basically the Metabots guy, as you are with the Zoids guy. But it looks like in the middle is where we kind of have our little need to establish communication. So it's come to my knowledge through our conversation, you don't really don't know a whole lot about the Metabots series as a whole. Is that correct?
That is correct. I remember we had the show for a bit on the Toonami days, I think, but
Okay.
well, like with Zoids, the Western presence just kind
Gotcha.
of dropped off.
Yeah, definitely felt that. And it would be the same thing with my end with Zoids. Like, well, I knew it existed, I've seen the toys every now and then and some model kits, just never really got into it officially. So I think this is going to be a very enlightening conversation and discussion with having the resident Zoids expert on the internet with the resident meta news tinkerer here, looking over the retrospective. So that's going to be really fun. So just to kind of set the stage so we're both on the same playing field here, to explain to you briefly what Metabots are, or Medarots as under its original name. The short answer to it essentially is they are pet robots designed to be your best friend. It is set in a future very similar to our own. Like the canonic timelines and everything that went together actually put it in the same rough time period that we're in right now, but obviously sentient AI robots are like now commonplace everywhere we go. But the big charm to Metabots was the fact that they were small, about 3 foot tall in height on average, but their parts were customizable and could be mixed and matched to suit different needs in RPG-style fights in the games. So you had your head part, you had your right arm, your left arm, and your legs, and you could always shift things around to kind of arrange how you put your traditional RPG team together, which made it a huge, a really big staple in the series from when it first started out. So if your shoot DPS, for instance, was having a lot of trouble keeping up, well, maybe you could equip a support part somewhere to kind of give them a bit of an edge and make them more of a team player. Or if your defender really isn't catching up and they're on bad terrain, you could switch the legs up for something that's a little more compatible to kind of keep your speed bonuses going. So that's the thing that always set it apart, is the fact that not only were they the mix and match, but they come in all different kinds of shapes and sizes. And the chibi style of designs that a lot of them take makes customization and even original designs a huge tantamount stepping stone and charm to the series as a whole. So as you're going to see here, as we kind of roll through these, just with the Zoids versions alone, just being able to take another different IP and kind of translate it into their own little universe is honestly something that's I never get tired of seeing.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I've heard that the first generation of Medarots were actual living, like they were made. They weren't AI, but the subsequent generations, ones made for civilian and military use or whatever later on, those were just AI, but really, really advanced ones, bordering sentience.
You're on the right track, actually. And I actually was shocked by this when I had a chance to do a What is Medarot collab back a couple of years ago, and it's honestly one of the crowning jewels of my channel. Highly recommend sitting in to listen if you got yourself about 4 hours to kill. It's a long talk and discussion, but it's very, very enlightening. But according to the original timeline, it actually started back in like the late 30s, early 40s, with first contact through the UFOs in Arizona. You know, first contact. Right, they're technically alien tech, essentially. That was researched and then cloned / mass produced into a commercial enterprise. Very, very deep stuff.
Arizona resident, I find this amusing.
It's crazy, actually. Remind me sometime once we go off the air. I'll show you a couple of the original frames of the manga. It's actually kind of wild, the kind of stuff they went in there. And the running joke through that entire conversation was, we are clearly living in the wrong timeline. If this is the kind of stuff we could have been getting. So very, very enlightening discussion. I think you might definitely enjoy it if you want to get into the series. But on the flip side, as I turn the table back around, like I said, unfortunately, when it comes to Zoids, I'm not super informed on this series, so this is going to be your chance to enlighten me on the Zoids series as a whole. What's it about? What's the main premise, the plot? Go ahead and hit me with your best shot.
So with Zoids, I mean, most people probably look at Zoids and they think Gundams, but animals. But it's a bit more complex than that. So Zoids predominantly takes place on planet Z, not on Earth at all. Actually, the galactic opposite of Earth, 30,000 light years from galactic center, which is oddly enough where Earth is, just on the other end of the Milky Way.
Oh, wow.
But it starts with warring factions on Planet Z, and they use wild Zoids, which are just basically animals, but like big and made of metal.
Okay.
You just rewrite them around, but as time went on, as factions began to combine and grow to make stronger factions for themselves and gain more territory, they realized that you could actually customize these things. If you could actually like take them apart and add limbs or like roll cages or external weaponry. You could start upgrading these wild animals.
I see. So essentially, so the way I'm understanding it's kind of like alien tech, but we went to them instead of them coming to us.
Absolutely, and this was before humans even showed up. Like they found out that with the Zoids you find out with we're most familiar with, like the Blade Liger here.
Okay.
That's called a combat Zoid. What that is the entirety of the wild Zoid has been removed. The only thing left is the Zoid core, the big organ ball in the middle. You take that out of a wild Zoid and you make it into shove it in a big machine body, usually with an internal cockpit if it's big enough. And those are the Zoids we see most often in anime.
Gotcha.
So they're just like less like Gundams and more like Ava units.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I can see the inspiration with that. That's actually kind of interesting. Like, I never quite got into the lore of Zoids as a whole, but I was knowledgeable of a couple of the designs and the more iconic ones, you know, especially with the first couple runs of the Zoids collab. But that's honestly really interesting. And given that, much like you said, it's, 43 years?
43 years old now.
40,
Tech
wow.
officially.
Wow, 43 years. That's crazy for a franchise to go that long.
And a big pull was much like the Metabots is that unlike Gundams, they're super customizable. And they're not just like, oh, it's a Blade Liger and there's no others. There's Blade Liger's a species and there's different ones.
And there's different types and different designs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're extremely customized. That was what Tomi's big push was since the 80s, that you can not only have this one, it can be the one from the show, it can be your own, you can have this weapon, that weapon, boosters, whatever you want to do to it, make it yours.
That probably explains why over the entirety of 4 different collaborations, that about 8 of them are Ligers. And it's funny because the running joke is, and I even showed this to you early on, you can have 3 different Blade Ligers in a lineup in Meta S, and no 2 of them are the same, both either in appearance or in skill. So that's actually really cool to find out. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to kind of go through each of the different collabs, you know, one at a time. I'm going to kind of showcase what their designs were, if they had any alt skins, go over the kit that they designed for them with their part names, and if anything stands out to you, that this is basically your time to gush and say, oh, this is a reference to this in particular, or this kind of lines up with the kind of combat style that this model had in the series. This is just kind of our way to see how well did it translate from one series to the other, basically.
I'm super excited.
All right, so the first one that was officially introduced. This was back in, hold on, let me grab my notes here real quick. I put a little document down to hold on to because I wanted to grab the lore bits on these too.
By the way, before we switch to the first slide, if anyone's looking for this artwork, this was drawn by one Mercy Rabbit.
Ooh, that's actually very impressive. I was trying to find a good Zoids wallpaper in general to use for this slide, and I'm actually very glad I ended up on this one. Thank you so much for that. That's actually really nice.
Yeah, they've been involved in the Zoids franchise for years. They make official stuff. They used to make official stuff all the time, and now they are predominantly making the box arts for the HMM Zoids.
Gotcha. That's actually really cool. Now, for the first collaboration of the series, it was roughly about 2023 or so when the first one came off, and it was specifically around Zoids Wild Zero, 2022. And with that collaboration specifically, we only had 2 models that came out of it, and a handful of cosmetics for existing models. But this is essentially what kind of got the Zoids craze going for Meta S back in 2022. So we had ZWZ0, Zoids Wild Zero, for B Liger, with Fight Full Charge, Double Charge Claw, Wield Legs, and Adapter. So to basically explain how the Liger worked in this one is he basically sapped his head HP to fully charge his energy gauge all the way up, and then he could use either claw on his left or right arm to deal scatter damage to multiple parts at once, with damage that scaled relative to how high his energy gauge was. And the wheeled legs meant he had very high mobility on a lot of different terrain, on a lot of different places, but poor terrain compatibility until you factor in Adapter, which negates the terrain incompatibility equation entirely. You could use him anywhere, he could be on any terrain and have no problems whatsoever, making him a very synergetic, charge energy reliant, self-synergetic unit essentially. So what are your thoughts on this particular model of Liger?
So this is actually kind of fun because you were just saying that the Ligers aren't the same, but in this instance, those two versions of Beast Liger actually are the same one.
Okay.
So, and Zoids Wild Zero was the anime from 2019. It was our most recent, like, official anime, so I'm not surprised they went with that one to plug first. But the more muted version there, it was the Liger we would see in the first episode. It didn't really have a name. It was just called Liger. Fans started calling it the Proto-Beast Liger. It's very muted. It didn't even really have, like, much in the way of weaponry. It was mostly just UPS.
Gotcha.
Leo was using it to deliver packages.
Gotcha.
It wasn't until it got upgraded via like sci-fi magic in like the first episode during a battle that it became the nice colored Beast Liger with the gold and the red and the weapon.
Gotcha. And something else to mention is it's not really shown very well on the back of the screenshot I took, but it actually has a little bit of a jetpack on the back. I'm assuming that's also kind of lines up with the prototype, essentially, as you said, that it kind of came suited with.
Yeah. Like the blades are usually with Beast Liger. It has a set of 3 blades that flip up from its backpack instead of being on its limbs.
Okay.
I suppose it wouldn't translate super well to try and do that with a biped.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, especially since you only have like 2 or maximum 3 combat parts based on the mechanics of how Medarot takes place. The little flavor text that goes with every Medarot as well, which kind of tells a bit of like who they are, what their battle style says. It says specifically, it's a Medarot designed from mysterious data called ZWZ, and they often use that as the starting sentence for most of their collab models. But it says, characterized by its white color and red mane, with legends of its parts circulating unknown powers, it has extremely high combat abilities and can instantly slash opponents with power-charged claws.
It might actually be, they might even be hyping it up a bit because, this same Liger does make its way through all 50 episodes, and supposedly, I was told that in the 7th anime, which is really just a short 6-episode miniseries, another, I believe the Beast Liger does also make a cameo, and it's supposedly the same one long after Leo has passed. Since the 7th anime is like a century after the 6th one.
Interesting. So they're kind of tying the universe together, essentially.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of neat how things do that. I like when they circle back to like older elements or older stories to kind of tie the universe together. I love it when they do that. It's so nice. The other model
we just love to hype up its Ligers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. And like I said, over 4 different collabs, we have 8 Ligers as a whole, and no 2 are the same, which is going to make this a very fun discussion. Now the other big model that they hyped as the Gacha banner models for the Wild Zero collab was ZWZ01 G Spino, who has a flavor text of characterized by its massive jaws and disc-shaped saw-like parts. It's said to be able to move freely on land and water, leaving only traces of destruction in its wake. Now, G Spino was the far more aggressive of the two, which you could basically use right out of the box. Ghost is essentially a very high-powered defense-ignoring attack that scales on the amount of energy charged, but it doesn't consume it much like Beast Liger's Charge Claws will. So the higher charge you have, the more painful it gets. Power Rifle is essentially just a very strong shooting attack that gets damage plus as long as the user's legs are still healthy and undamaged. Long Shot gets damage plus relative to how far away the target is from the user, so basically good for long-range sniping. And the leg ability of Mariner means it has S rank or full mastery on aquatic terrains where most biped legs will not, which I'm guessing kind of ties back into that. But what's your thoughts on Spino here?
So this one, I actually really like the design of this one. It's definitely a Geno Spino, or, well, apparently in the English dub of Zoids Wild Zero, everyone pronounces it Geno Spino.
Okay, interesting.
Which, well, the Geno is sharing the same name as Genosaur, which in Japan is supposed to be Genosaur, like
I could kind of see that. I could see that, yeah. I could see where they're coming from.
But it's definitely fun that, so the one on the left is how it appears in the anime and how it's sold normally in the model kit with the big guns on the side and probably the most Ruby-styled Zoids weapon I've ever seen. Not only is it a chainsaw, but it's also a gun and a Beyblade. Like, it's hilarious.
Yeah. It's actually kind of wild how they translated that, too, because in the idle animations for it, the blade is actually folded over and folded back along the back of the head and kind of like sits like a Spinosaur fin on its back, despite actually being, attached to the back of the skull. and then when you actually go to use the attack, it actually flips up and opens before it actually starts spinning like a rotary saw. So it's always kind of neat how they go with that extra mile with the animations and everything. I always love when they do that.
I was not expecting the one on the right, so I don't recall the name specific they called this, but this was a limited edition armor set they sold for Geno Spino with the flames.
Okay.
And I don't remember if it actually came with those weapons on its arm, which if I recall correctly, are sort of gravity weapons. They're customized parts set for the Wild Zero line.
Gotcha.
I was not expecting. That's just so bizarre and random and rare. Like,
okay.
I think only like 500 of those were even made.
Interesting. I was actually curious what the whole what the whole inspiration for the alt skin was for G Spino. Like, I was looking at it for all these years, ever since I picked up the model, and I'm like, yeah, I'll use them every now and then, you know, as I see the need, or if I need a good aquatic legs on something. But I could just never really figure out where the alt skin came from, and a lot of folks, even in the Medarot community, were kind of scratching their heads, going, okay, we're kind of wondering where the flame decals and the alternative guns came in. But given that it was a kind of like a rare limited edition model, that actually makes a lot of sense. I could see why they'd want to kind of hype that with this collaboration. Now,
yeah, Tony was doing that with that line. They sold it for several of their wild kits. It's just kind of a thing they were doing, and I guess it worked pretty well because they do demand quite a bit of money, and people are loving them.
Gotcha. Now, what is the general premise of Wild Zero compared to most of the others?
So, Zoids Wild Zero is actually a spiritual successor to our first anime, Zoids Chaotic Century.
Okay.
It even has some of the same writing staff and a few of the same returning voice actors from the first anime.
Interesting.
The idea the anime starts out is that apparently Earth had been through a botched terraforming project. It seems before the series had started, people of Planet Z had attempted to return to Earth. Shockingly, they trashed Z like they usually trash Earth. Apparently, people aren't good at like taking care of planets. I guess they tried to return and terraform Earth to be more like Planet Z was, and due to some time-space debauchery, kind of screwed it up. There's a whole bunch of Zoids, fossilized and living, roaming all over the place. It kind of screwed up the terrain.
Oh,
so
dear.
Having a guy with a Liger doing UPS packages is actually pretty decent business.
Gotcha. Okay, so they messed it up to the point it became commonplace and never figured out how to fix it.
So yeah, and then the series as it goes on, the classic Empire and Republic factions return, and we get a return to Zoids' traditional Empire versus Republic warring as Zoids get upgraded on each side, betrayal,
Gotcha.
all the good warring factions stuff.
Your usual plot drivers.
Yeah. It's
Gotcha.
also rather interesting is that not only were they bringing back references to the Republic and the Empire from the first anime, but they actually went back further because they made Easter eggs and references to the older Empire, the Xenobus Empire, not the Gylos Empire from the anime, the even older one.
I love, like I said, I love when story writers do that and they tie their universe back together, because one of my biggest nitpicks with people that do like extended universes or really like world build in a series that they've done is they'll make a story or they'll make a plot, they'll solve it or resolve it and just kind of leave it there, and then they just kind of move on to the next thing. But the fact that they can go back and like tie into previous plots or conflicts kind of reminds you this is all the same universe and ties the whole thing together. I love that synergy essentially. Just as one offhand example, that's actually one reason why I loved how they did how they did the previous title Easter eggs in Breath of the Wild, where you could see like the Majora's Mask or the Xan's Mask or the Fierce Deity's outfit. Obviously they don't fit in there, but it's nice to see them and they kind of go full circle to bring it all back in. So I love when they do things like that. It's really, really nice. I
don't want to give Tomy too much credit, though. Zoids Wild Zero is not the same canon universe as the first anime or even the original battle story lore. It makes references to both, so it seems to be in a universe of somehow them being a hybrid.
So like a alternative universe.
Yeah, but it's fun to see references to like super old, to old stuff, even if their universe doesn't quite make sense that way.
Gotcha. Now, out of all the Zoids collabs that we've also had through these recent years, this is actually the one that has still yet to make a rerun for some odd reason. I'm going to assume it's maybe just licensing agreements or something with Tomy didn't quite settle well or didn't feel like it. I'm not sure. I believe, if I recall correctly, too, about the same time there was and correct me if I'm wrong, my memory might be kind of spotty on this. Wasn't there a whole NFT thing that around Wild Zero that was kind of making rounds a couple of years back, or was that for something else unrelated?
There was Zoids Wild NFT. Fans were not on board with it. It was, I don't even know if it's still active, but even the fans that did get it just out of completionist sake, it was mostly like pay to play. And
Gotcha.
There
Okay.
wasn't a whole lot to it.
Gotcha. That might check out with it then. Actually, Medarot is sadly no stranger to it either. We actually just got out of or Imagineer rather, just got out of a whole 5-year legal case where someone hijacked the name Metabots in Europe, and it made a whole mess. They were trying to make this whole NFT game, saying, "Oh, we're just like the original," when you're clearly not, and it was a whole mess and a half. So I can see if they tie NFT to anything, it probably not be seen very fondly. So I could see that.
Although I don't know if that's particularly why this one, because that one wasn't just Zoids Wild Zero, it was Zoids Wild in itself.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
I think you might have some idea though. I think it might be some legal issue because this is also the first 5 Zoids animes have had Blu-ray releases, but this one has not.
Interesting. So this one was
It doesn't
kind
have
of
any physical releases.
So this one was kind of just dropped off after it was finished, and they never really picked it back up again.
You're right. It's weird. I don't know why they did that. But
Interesting.
It's like, because people usually hit me up like, "You have all the episodes?" Like, yeah, I do. I post clips up to them, you know. But I don't know why it hasn't gotten a DVD set, a Blu-ray box set, anything.
Interesting. That's actually really interesting to hear. That it's not just a one-off. It's kind of like the whole thing fell off. That's really neat. Now with this first one though, kind of moving along here with the Wild Zero part, we actually didn't get a lot of gotcha models. We only had B Liger and G Spino. But we did get a couple of, hold on one second here, there we go, alternative cosmetic skins that were done for existing models in the game. And a lot of them are actually very iconic characters that are well known by fans through the anime or the earlier games. So in this one, Warbonnet, a King Lion type, got a Rising Liger style alt skin. Air Terra, a pterodactyl style, got a Snipe Terra. And Smilodon, a Saber Tiger, got a Fang Tiger. So obviously they are going to be Zoids-oriented, Zoids theme, but what's kind of the history between these 3 in particular?
So the Rising Liger is actually the same as the first 2 Ligers. It got 2 upgrades in the series. It started out as that very monochrome muted Liger, upgraded to Beast Liger, and then later on in the series, upgraded again into Rising Liger. That's what it's the same one. This one just gets a revolving. It gets a gunblade like from Final Fantasy VIII. It's really fun.
Gotcha. Well, I guess that checks out since Warbonnet is a very long range oriented design. So I guess that definitely checks out, and it's a very snazzy looking skin on him too.
Oh yeah, Rising Liger is definitely one of my favorite new gen Zoids. I mean, it's weird we don't have more Gunblades as a franchise. Like Gunblades are just cool and they're goofy and steampunky. They're perfect.
Oh yeah, definitely. So what's the story on Snipe Terra then?
So Snipe Terra, also it's spelled odd. Is that how it's officially spelled?
I might have misspelled it because I have to kind of run it through a translator, and I just I just kind of moved it one side to another and had to work through a translator with it. So that one might be an error on my part.
Oh, okay. I thought that might be the official spelling, which would make it a bit odd because it's Snipe Terra like Pterosaur.
Yeah, I think I probably just misspelled it wrong. Apologies.
No, that's fine. So this is an Imperial modified Wild Zoid. It was used by I believe he was a lieutenant at the time, Lieutenant Giller. He was famed as being the Red Reaper, that he would swoop down from the skies and annihilate his enemies without mercy in his Snipe Terra.
Okay.
It's a fun Zoid. It got 2 releases. It's pretty fun. I have 2 of them.
Interesting. And then what about Fang Tiger?
So Fang Tiger, this is the Fang Tiger Kai version. Fang Tiger did appear first in Zoids Wild, the 5th anime, where it was yellow, and it was written by a guy named Bacon. They had a very Dragon Ball naming theme in that anime.
Gotcha.
He was killed brutally, pretty screwed up. But this black version was Fang Tiger Kai, which is an upgraded version of Fang Tiger from the Empire. And I believe it was first piloted by a guy of limited sanity called Aldridge. He was kidnapping one of the main characters to use her for various nefarious purposes, and instead of being this beautiful, the fantastic banana yellow people remember from like Zoid's New Century, it's this very black and red evil paint scheme, but it's got guns on it, which the first Fang Tiger didn't, so it's an upgrade.
Gotcha. Honestly, I have to say the skins fit very nicely with the models in question too that they were using as reference material. Now, granted, these didn't have any special skills or anything outside that. They were just cosmetics, so if you had the original model, then you could use them over top. The color chips on here actually work with these too, so you could like alternate Rising Liger into a different hue or a different saturation if you wanted to personalize a little bit. But essentially, it was more the case of if you didn't have the original model, it just kind of sat in your library and looked pretty until you did. But it was still really nice to see that they went that extra mile to kind of showcase some alternative designs and kind of bring them into the game without having to bring, Rising Liger, Snipe Terra, and Fang Tiger as 3 brand new gacha models and really stress the players out. Now, unfortunately, I think that mindset kind of devolved a little bit to more heavily gacha-oriented over the years, but back, at least at this point, they were at least still mildly conscious of it. Now, something else that collabs do, at least as after they were officially announced as a mechanic, is handlers, or Medarotters as they're called, which are owners or handlers that take care of their pet Medarots. Kind of also got in on the action with alternative skins and cosplay outfits to kind of match a lot of the different characters. So obviously, again, to me as the non-Zoids guy, these are just kind of like alt skins to me or alt outfits, but what are the kind of overall feels for the characters here? And I did put the names down there at the bottom from left to right, so it is Arase, Salt, Hisaki, Koishimaru, Iku, Azuma, and Hotori.
So all of these are definitely outfits from Zoids Wild Zero, and I say they did such a good job. It's adorable seeing these outfits. The one on the far left is Leo. He's our pro tag from Wild Zero.
Naturally.
They even add bandages to his left arm because his left arm got all screwed up in the first episode. That's a nice touch. They didn't just give him his clothes; they gave him the.
Yeah, that's honestly something I really love about it, is that they go that extra mile with the references and the information on there too. That's honestly something that we've always appreciated with collaborations.
The one in the middle is his name is dumb. They call him Brad, but it's also spelled like 4 different ways, called like Bon Blood. He has they guess they couldn't. I don't know if it was the translators or whoever was doing localization could not decide on how to call this guy. But it's kind of funny, that outfit that he's wearing was also worn by Fubuki, the Fox VTuber, when they did a collaboration with Zoids. They made an official standee with her dressed in that same outfit.
Interesting. You gotta love when they reach out to different medias like that. But what about the rest of the outfits? I'm assuming they're nods to different characters of the cast?
Yeah, they all appeared in Zoids Wild Zero. The girl up here in the front, that was Sally Land's outfit. And then we have, every single one of these is mostly the main cast. I mean, their hairstyles and colors are different, but,
right.
I'm sure they're just dressing up for fun.
Right, they're mostly like cosplay outfits more than anything else.
Yeah.
But the nice thing,
these are so fun.
Essentially the way the Medarotters worked is they kind of gave extra passives to whoever they were equipped to in battles. So say one of them would have a boost to left arm heating, or head armor, or leg mobility. And a lot of them typically also had an extra ability that could be activated, typically once per battle, to kind of help turn the tide in your favor. Sometimes they were things like reduces damage by a certain amount, buffs a stat for 1 or 2 turns, allows you to bypass any enemy traps for 1 or 2 turns. Usually stuff that's not like going to make or break a strategy, but usually nice to have if you found yourself in the need for something to turn the tables. But yeah, it honestly was really nice. This collab was more heavy on the Medarotters more than it was the actual characters themselves. But all the same, it was still very nice to see them collected and picked up for all the same, with just with all the references and the extra miles that they go to with this. I always do love it. Now, like I said, this was the first Zoids collaboration that kind of got Medarot S's feet wet with getting into other franchises. This was very, very early on, before they started picking up other series. The Omega Sisters had a collab a couple times, Digimon, Ghost in the Shell, and I'll be more than happy to show you more of those later once we go offline. But it's crazy, all the different series and IPs that Medarot S got into outside of Zoids as well. But the next collaboration they got into just a little bit later was the original Zoids back in 2023. And this one was actually released, I believe this one was released roughly around Medarot Day that year, which is November 28th, the day the first game officially launched. So when they first released this, there was actually 5 models in it. Obviously, I couldn't fit all 5 here on the slide. But just to go through the first 3 here, we had ZID, Zoids, 0, Shield Liger, 01 Blade Liger, and 02 Command Wolf. that kind of front run at the beginning of that collaboration. So to go through them each one at a time, Shield Liger had full charge, double beam sword, biped legs, and auto charge, which meant, much like the original Blade Liger from the Wild Zero, he was a very self-synergetic, energy-reliant model. So he could actually I take that back. I think it was charge guard, not full charge, but very self-reliant. He could charge his own energy gauge over time. He had beam swords as his main modes of combat, and the ability to use charge guard on his head allowed him to take blows for allies and intercept them. Let me see here. The flavor text it read for him said, a Medarot designed for mysterious data called ZID. Characterized by its blue, lion-like appearance, it not only can deploy a powerful shield from its mane to protect allies, but also takes to the front lines to slash at enemies with sharp blades. Its movements are like a blue whirlwind.
That's very... Oh, this looks so fantastic. I mean, it's obviously the classic Shield Liger, but it seems like, yeah, they definitely wanted to do Zoid's Chaotic Century references, except for that alt skin of the Blade Liger. That's definitely not Chaotic Century.
I think I have the names on a couple of these too when I sent them to you originally, but I thought the part names were also really nice too, because that was another big thing that set Medarot apart. Is it's not just left arm, right arm, but they often actually have names attached to them, and depending on the theme or motif of the design, actually call back to it. So, looking at Shield Liger specifically, I'm assuming Futo no Yaiba, Futsu no Yaiba, I'm assuming those might be references or callbacks to something?
Not that's coming to mind. I say I'm not terribly familiar with Japanese. That's more of a Falcarius thing.
Okay.
But I would say, yeah, it's definitely an NJR era Shield Liger. I don't... Actually, no. I was about to say I thought it might be a reference to the one from Chaotic Century. But actually, I don't think it is now that I'm looking at it. Because
Gotcha.
if I recall correctly, that specific Shield Liger had gold paws, and this one has silver. So I think this might just be the generic version of Shield Liger.
Well, it's also worth noting that one actually was handed out as a freebie during the first run of the collab. So so as long as you participated in the events and collected them, everybody walked home with at the minimum Shield Liger. Even if you had the worst gacha luck possible, he was still the welfare one that everyone walked home with, and he was actually pretty solid for what he brought to the table. I graded him decently well for a welfare model that players could collect on. Now, the next one in the series, obviously, the iconic Blade Liger, came with Revenge Sword, Charge Spark, Punishment, and Through Fight. So essentially the way he worked was, his head part meant after he took a certain amount of damage, his damage output using Revenge Sword would triple and gain piercing as a counter or retaliation effort. Charge Spark meant that he could boost his own heating and cooling, his mobility running back and forth, if he consumed a small amount of energy from his gauge. Punishment meant he dealt more damage to an enemy that was front-facing towards him, half damage if they were facing away, and had a chance to deal 1 of 5 random negative ailments. And the ability of Through Fight meant that he had the chance to bypass enemy shields or ignore defense when using melee attacks. The flavor text for him reads, characterized by its lion-like appearance and blade-wielding form, it traverses the battlefield with unrestrained, breathtaking slashes, overwhelming its enemies. Its presence is reminiscent of a hero protecting peace.
Oh, so this one is definitely... well, actually, I was about to say it's definitely a reference to Van Flyhigh, but then again, there were 2 famous Blade Liger pilots that piloted blue Blade Ligers of the era. I doubt it's a reference to Arthur Boardman from the Battle Story, but I suppose that data also fit with that if one were so inclined. But yeah, it definitely fits in because it's... I mean, the shields was high tech. The blades were really when the Heelek Republic was going out for more melee focus with blades instead of just claws.
Gotcha.
I love the angled ears though. That's something that's not normally on a blade like. Usually they're very like curvy. The angle on it makes it look awesome.
Oh yeah. That. I think the alt skin that was designed, obviously it's going to be a nod to the Blade Beast Liger from Wild Zero. That was the first thing I picked up on anyway. I think it was titled I think it's labeled Mirage skin. Mirage actually, as an alt.
It is labeled Mirage. You're correct, but it is actually not a reference to Beast Liger.
Okay.
So the Blade Liger Mirage was originally sold as a Yuji Kaida kit, which is like a short run of special edition, special colored versions with a unique box art.
Gotcha.
And the lore for it was, I think it was probably quite a while after the original Battle Story lore, is that it was piloted by a man named Peter Icehop. and apparently he took the place of Red Leo Master after Arthur Boardman, who I mentioned before. He'd been dead for some time, and I guess apparently this concludes that the title of Leo Master can be passed down if one of them is dead.
Okay, that would obviously make a lot of sense, naturally.
Yeah. Because we didn't know that beforehand. There were just always originally 7 Leo Masters, but I mean,
Gotcha.
most of them are dead, but until Mirage Blade Liger showed up, we didn't see any new ones.
Gotcha. Now, one thing I do have to ask before I move on to Command Wolf is the other thing that really set Blade Liger apart is the fact that while he definitely had the melee combat down, stat-wise, he was definitely quick on his feet, but extremely light in the armor department. I'm assuming that also is par for the course?
I mean, yeah, it is an older gen Zoid at this point. You did mention the cooling thing that's actually a reference to it. It has refrigeration units on its legs.
Yes.
Because it's kind of heavy, so what it is, it's quick, but I think it's 30 tons heavier than the newer Liger Zero.
Okay.
So it's fast, but it needs a little help.
Nice. Now to explain heating and cooling in Medarot is, you know how with traditional RPGs you have your turns. You know, whoever has fastest goes first, and it kind of goes down the line. And after the slowest person goes, a new cycle starts, and the fastest takes their next turn. So basically, in Medarot, they kind of turned that whole mechanic on their head by giving all the parts, the head and arms, a heating stat and a cooling stat. And essentially how those work is heating took place, kind of like warming up it with exercising, as you're running to the command line to take your turn. So the better rated your heating stat was, the faster you could get to the command line to take your turn, even if there was no set turn order. In your cooling is after you'd already taken your turn, you turned around and you were running back to start to receive your next order. So essentially, the competitive meta is being able to maximize your heating and your cooling of either your head or arms, and then the mobility on your legs. Because obviously you're going to be matching terrain anyway, so you don't have to worry too much about that one. But it's been a staple of the series pretty much since its very beginning, when they really started popping off, of being able to have really fast parts typically not hit nearly as hard, or be really light on armor, and really heavy or more powerful ones would be much slower and need more time to use. And Liger kind of fell in that other vein of being fast and hitting hard, but if he takes a hit, it might be relatively painful. Now, the third one that was introduced in this, the second gacha model from the OG one in 2023, is obviously Command Wolf 02, with Hyper Charge Buster, Panic, Hyper Thunder Shot, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Illusion. So to explain his kit, he took a more auxiliary shooting support role. Essentially, he had Hyper Charge Buster, which would consume a small amount of energy for a boosted damage. You don't need the charge to use it, but it is appreciated for him to have. Panic is a shooting attack that serves twofold depending on how you hit the target. If you hit a target that is facing Command Wolf, as in you outrun them to the command line, it'll behave as Slip, which essentially turns them around and starts their cooling right where you catch them, so a turn skipping. Or if you catch them in their cooling with their back facing you, it serves as Metaphor Seal, which essentially prevents them from being able to unleash their energy nukes. Hyper Thunder Shot, of course, is essentially just a thunder bullet that hits a whole lot harder and will stun enemies that it catches and lands successfully. And the leg ability of Illusion also grants it the ability, I believe this one was, I think Illusion was stealth effect when charging, which meant that he could not be touched or targeted for his entire next turn unless he was already being targeted in the first place.
Gee.
The flavor text for him reads, characterized by its wolf-like appearance, it excels at tricky fighting styles. But of course, its ability to overwhelm opponents with head-on battles is also undeniable, making it seem like a cunning hunter cornering its enemies.
Nice.
So I actually had to do a little bit of digging with this when I had some other Zoids friends of mine confirm, but the alt skin that they gave for Command Wolf is the Lightning Sights, I believe it's called?
Yes, I was actually going to ask about that and say that's an alternate skin, but it's it's a different species of Zoid, but I suppose in this case it's just the same exact one.
It's a cosmetic skin for Command Wolf, so it's technically the same model 1-to-1, but I believe there was also a history behind Command Wolf on this one.
Yes, so normally Command Wolves and Lightning Sykes are not related at all. They're not even from the same faction. Command Wolves were made from the Heroic Republic, and Lightning Sykes is an Empire Zoid.
Gotcha.
But this specific Command Wolf with the black coloring and the red shoulders actually belonged to Irvine, who was a mercenary. He showed up in the original Battle Story lore and in the first anime Chaotic Century. And in the anime, his Command Wolf is crushed by a Genobreaker, and it is set to die as Irvine waits by its deathbed. Crazy scientist comes up to him and says, "Hey, I realize your Command Wolf is dying. You know, big emotions, big sads.
Right.
I have this Lightning Sykes that I've been building for the past couple years, and my idiot test pilot slammed its head into the wall, and its memory banks are trashed. So I propose, rather than me wasting 6 more months trying to reprogram the memory banks of this Lightning Sykes, what if you let me tinker with your Command Wolf, remove its memory banks, and put it in the Lightning Sykes? So that way, even though your wolf is set to die, its memories will live on in this new Zoid."
So essentially, hey, you got a brain, I got a corpse that doesn't work. Let's see if we can work something out here between us.
Yeah, it does end up working. I mean, Irvine is originally not on board with this idea because it's very Frankenstein-y, but
right.
So when you see a Lightning Sykes with orange eyes like that, that is specifically Irvine's, because normally they have green eyes.
Gotcha. Which probably denotes the green eyes on the top of the head. I could see that now. Interesting. Like I said, I can honestly see how, and like I said, the references, the extra mile with the designs or with the part names is honestly really nice too. I always enjoy seeing that, but that extra history with the Command Wolf definitely made the alt skin a lot more sense, and it actually was a big point of discussion for a while. Some folks were staring at it going, what is a Lightning Sykes alt skin doing with Command Wolf? And all the people that actually knew were just kind of keeping their mouths shut and going, okay, let's see if they can figure it out on their own. But no, it's honestly really nice for that. But it wasn't just these 3 that spearheaded that second run for Zoids and Meta S. We actually got 2 more models in a Phase 2 for 2023. One of these, based on your videos, I think you will find particularly appealing. We had ZID-03G Soarer and 04D Soarer officially stomp the battlegrounds. Genosaur, however, is characterized as a ferocious, rampaging, dinosaur-like appearance, burning everything in its path with projectiles fired from its mouth, and sweeping away everything in its path with gigantic claws. Its appearance is like that of a demon's alter ego.
Well, that's... I've never heard it described that way, but yeah, that's not bad.
Now, to explain how G-Soarer worked in Meta S, he had Ghost Shot, Double Cross Shock, Wheeled Legs, and Bloodstain. So this one was obviously very forwardly aggressive, which I'm assuming is very par for the course with the Genosaurs. But essentially, Ghost Shot is a shooting version of what G-Spino had back on a couple slides ago. It's a defense-ignoring shooting attack that scales damage relative to how much energy that the user has charged. Cross Shock on both arms is a melee attack that's with a scatter effect, so it'll hit multiple parts at once when attacking, but it's always guaranteed to land and always guaranteed to be a critical hit on top of that. So it's always going to be painful no matter which way you look at it. G-Soar was also given Wheeled Legs, a little harder to see at these angles, but it was also given the leg ability of Bloodstain, which upon breaking parts successfully buffs its damage for the rest of the fight. And over the course of 2 different collabs, I just put them both here, it was given 2 alternative skins. I believe this was the Genobreaker and Psycho Genobreaker, I think it's called?
Psycho Genosaur.
Psycho Geno, okay. So what's the history behind Genosaur in particular?
So you were right. It is a very forward-attacking kind of Zoid. I don't think it has any rear-facing weapons at all. But when it was in development, it was thought that it was quick enough and maneuverable enough that it wouldn't really matter.
Need them.
Yeah, but essentially, Genosaur is just the sport coupe model of the Death Soar.
Interesting.
The Death Soar on the right was the big baddie, but giant Mecha Godzilla monsters are expensive and time-consuming.
Right.
So you need yourself a little cheap coupe model. So they scaled the Death Sword down. They made it, more easy to produce. They put a couple of rifles on it. And they're like, bam, here you go, sport model.
Interesting.
And it generally works. They first tested it against some Saber Tigers and Darkhorns, and it tore its way through them with relative ease. They're like, this is going to be our new frontline Zoid.
Interesting. So what's the history behind the 2 alt skins it was given over the course of the over the collab?
So the Geno Breaker, I assume it might be a reference to the Geno Breaker appeared in the Zoids Chaotic Century anime, but it was also in the original battle story lore. Essentially, as the war picked up, they needed to upgrade the Genosaur to keep up with the Republic's Blade Laggers. So they removed the rifles from its back, and they gave it a big set of boosters, and they gave it those the X breakers on the sides. Looks like
Gotcha.
they opted to not put the boosters on and keep the rifles for this fame, but yeah, I get the point. They want
Gotcha.
skin.
Gotcha.
And then the Psycho Genosaur is an anime exclusive version piloted by an ancient Zoidian named Reese. Those things on its legs are actually hologram projectors. She has a little bit of psychic power, and she also manipulates people with creepy little wild beetle Zoids, and she uses hologram projectors to further screw with people.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Gotta love the references, like I said, of how they did this. And
Yeah.
yeah, even with the Geno Breaker as well, it was actually really nice how they modeled the whole claw appendage on both sides of its body. Now, obviously, it's connected to the head part, so it's going to be really big and clunky if you were to use just the head part as an equip. But it's still really nice that they went and went ahead and modeled all that, the extra mile. Now, the other one, 04D Soarer, is characterized by its massive dinosaur-like physique. It seeks to rule the world with a barrage of bullets like rain and destructive rays of light. Its appearance is like that of a monstrous beast of destruction. It came equipped with Curse Shot, Hyper Missile, Laser, Tank Legs, and the leg ability of Pupa. So now, in comparison to G-Soar, this one worked a little bit slower, but also had a much more, over time, more dangerous appearance. Curse Shot essentially was a very unique shooting attack that, if it managed to break something on the opponent with its strike, inflicted a curse symptom that prevented them from being able to restore the broken part or heal it for a certain number of turns, and had a one-turn cooldown before they could use it again. Hyper Missile was just a much more forwardly aggressive version of a standard gunpowder attack that hit all parts, so really good if you want to spread your damage and break a whole bunch of things at once. Laser is your generic optic-based attack, so the more charge you have, you get some damage thresholds. But the leg ability of Pupa is also nice, as upon maintaining a certain level of energy charge or higher, D-Soar obtained a damage reduction that stayed in effect as long as he stayed above that charge requirement. And obviously, he came with the alt skin of the Bloody Deathsaurus.
Yes.
So I figured you might get a kick out of this one the most after looking over a few videos of your content with your little friend that joins you on some of your videos. So what's the history behind D-Soarer here?
So the Deathsaur it's just kind of a mainstay Zoid on most media. It was basically the Xenobus Empire's super weapon. They were building it in secret. It was supposed to overpower anything the Republic had at the time, which I think the most they had at the time was Gojulus. But they were like, we're going to build our own giant monstrosity of a Zoid with super thick armor. It's going to have all the bells and whistles, and its most powerful thing is that glowing mouth cannon called the Charged Particle Gun.
Okay.
It's essentially Godzilla's atomic breath in laser form.
Kind of would have figured based on the appearance. That kind of checks out. And given that they set it up with Curse Shot, and actually, if I recall correctly, D-Soar first introduced Curse Shot into the game before it was used on other designs as part of the skill pool that they could pull from. So that's actually really cool how they did that with it, and honestly how they introduced new attacks or new formats or such. That's honestly something else that really worked too. So even if something would remain collab exclusive for a while, like Curse Shot, give it enough time, they'll release something new down the pike that's permanent in the game that actually is that has it as well. Now, to wrap up the first run of it, of course, we also had our cosplay Metarotters here with Azuma and Kohaku. So, what's the history behind these two in particular, in comparison to the original run?
So these two are wearing the outfit from the second season of Zoid's Chaotic Century. The one on the left is wearing Lieutenant Van Flyhide's outfit, which has a glorious ab window for some reason.
Obviously, it has to be for the appeal.
I mean, he was in the military, I think, for 2 years between seasons. He was understandably ripped. I guess he had abs the world needed to see.
Obviously.
And on the right, that is the outfit worn by Raven, our rival Antag kind of character. He's a little mentally unwell and was basically a prodigy, but he was picked up and trained by the Frozen Knights, and he became kind of a military Black Ops dog.
Gotcha.
Kind of angry little young man.
Gotcha. So your usual edgy anti-hero rival.
Yeah, I do appreciate, though, that towards the end, he came to realize what he had done and started taking responsibility for it, which I appreciate that if someone's going to be a douchebag for most of an anime series,
obviously.
kind
You
of
want the
like
character
come around
development.
like, all right, I was a bad guy. I'm sorry. I'll try to make up for it.
The character development's what's most important.
Yeah.
And that actually works out too because the two that they chose here for this, Azuma and Kohaku, are characters that first debuted and were introduced in Medarot DS, which was the first new generation for the series after it had like an 8-year hiatus where they didn't reproduce any new games or new content in Japan like at all. So Azuma was like the first new protag that was introduced to jumpstart the series again. And he kind of took the place of Ikki Tenryo from the original gen everybody knew. He was the protag kid. And Kohaku became his rival. So he kind of took the place of Koji in the original anime, where he was kind of like the composed rival that stood in place against Azuma if they were at odds.
So really well then.
Yeah, it's honestly really nice how they tie that together and go back with that. Now, this wasn't the only time that we actually got to see the OG cast officially get runs, because we actually got a third round, I guess I can call it, where they went back and brought back the OG, the first 5 OGs for the event so people could collect them again. But they introduced 3 brand new models alongside them 1 year later in 2024, including S. Swarter at ZID-05, D. Sting at 06, and Go Chulas at 07. To look over them all, S. Swarter, characterized by its pterosaur-like appearance, it soars through the sky with its silver wings slicing through opponents at blinding speed. It's said that if you operate this machine with a strong will, its proud storm blade will bring you victory.
So this is definitely a reference to Rosso and Viola's Storm Sorter specifically. The Storm Sorter is a more modern Republic flying combat Zoid. I think it can hit like Mach 3.2, so it's really fast. Although most people point out, usually people with military associates, be like, why do you have a machine that can hit Mach 3.2 and you put like 2 little tiny guns on it and a bunch of blades? It needs some missiles. It needs a cannon or something.
Yeah, well, you want speed and agility over firepower. I can see where they're going with that. Now, the kit the kit that they gave S. Swarter was Hypercharge Blade, Clock Rage, Terminate, and Flight Legs with the leg ability of Barrage. Hypercharge Blade essentially is a melee attack that gets a damage plus relative to how much charge is in the user's gauge after consuming a small amount of it. You don't need the charge, but if you have it, it's great. Clock Rage deals bonus damage if the opponent's targeted respective part, so in this case the right arm, is faster. If it has a higher heating stat than S. Swarter's Clock Rage, then it deals more damage. Terminate is a melee attack that if it catches an opponent in the backside in their cooling phase, has a high chance to instantly destroy the part that it was targeting for the attack. And the leg ability of Barrage, upon charging Metaforce once to activate its effect, rendered the user immune to any anti-air or anti-sea attacks, which, given its flight leg, meant you couldn't shoot it down out of the sky with a cheese shot.
I just noticed too the names Ara Wing and Barone Wing. That is a reference to Rosso, a character from Chaotic Century who put on a mask in season 2 and went around calling himself Ara Barone.
Interesting.
I don't know why. He's like, I want to say he's like 6'5" and like 285 pounds and a giant. He has a mess of huge red hair. He puts on a mask, and I'm like, dude, really? We know.
Everyone's gonna know it's you. I mean, it's for the theatric. It's for the theatric effect. There's clearly another red-haired 6-foot-tall guy around here somewhere. You just haven't seen him and I in the same room. I'm just telling you.
Clearly.
Obviously,
they're delightful though.
So what's the story with the alt skin that they gave S. Swarter with this one? Night, I think, dark, like stealth style. I think it was called.
So this is looks to be the Triple S, the Storm Sorter Stealth, which appeared in the Zoids Chaotic Century anime, and I'm assuming the will thing is that Rosso fought one of these, which was like the updated model of Storm Sorter, but Rosso ended up winning with his with his older machine because he was a better pilot.
Gotcha.
He could just kind of. He would simply. He said, I believe he said, was you're supposed to guide your Zoid with your spirit.
Gotcha. That would probably tie back into its flavor text, since it said that if you operate this machine with a strong will, its proud Stormblade will bring you victory.
Exactly, that's definitely what they were going for.
Interesting. I gotta love all these references. Now, at 06 in the second wave, they gave us D-Sting, whose flavor text reads, characterized by its long scorpion-like take and massive iron arms, it utterly destroys anyone who stands in its way. Its appearance is truly a nightmare, a messenger that brings about the end. It was given a kit of Break Rush, Double Break Claw, Multi-Legs, and the leg ability of Compression. Now, compared to other previous Zoid models so far, D-Sting was basically just a shill for Gravity attribute when he came out. Break Rush essentially is just a melee AoE attack, so it'll hit all the parts of the target when it attacks. But the Gravity attribute meant that if the opponent was equipped with at least 2 or more heavy parts, it would deal bonus damage relative to how many parts it checked for. Break Claw basically did the same thing, but instead of a full AoE, it just hit multiple parts at once, and the leg ability of Compression granted it a special status that boosted the success and damage of Gravity attacks for its next turn.
Wow.
So, like I said, it was mostly just a shill for Gravity attributes and heavy punish at that time, but in the right circumstances, it's always good to have 1 or 2 of those in your kit, in your libraries, just to have on hand. So, but that aside, what is the story on D-Sting here?
So this thing is probably one of the most problematic Zoids ever. Although, I gotta say, I love the design of this one. Probably one of my favorites of these Medarots. Because it's just turning something into a scorpion just makes it such a unique shape.
Oh yeah, it was very uniquely put. We all kind of stared at it going, that's a very interesting way to translate it.
So Death Stinger has appeared basically in 2 different universes. In the original Battle Story lore, it was extremely problematic, and that it was called the True Organoid. It was supposed to be the perfection of the organoid system they were working on at the time, which seemed like it was working great. It has a charged particle gun in its tail, like the Death Sword does, and it has all these limbs. It can work on any terrain. Problem was, it got shot in the head once, started freaking out, killed its own pilot, and then ran off.
Oh dear.
And then it was discovered a couple of months later by Arthur Boardman, that I mentioned before, and his rival Ritz, accidentally. And turns out, as it had escaped, what it had been doing in the meantime is it had been finding stray or wild Zoids or anything it could get close to, and had been tearing them to pieces, ripping their Zoid cores out and bringing them back to a nest it had made. And apparently, it could alter Zoid cores as they would slowly grow into little clones of the Death Sword.
Oh,
or the
dear.
Death Stinger, I'm sorry.
Oh,
so
that's...
this thing was essentially a metal plague.
So kind of like a metal zombie virus to a point.
Yeah, so Arthur and Ritz had to team up and get rid of this thing, because if it was allowed to spread and multiply like that,
oh yeah, obviously.
Planet-wide.
Yeah,
and in the anime, it didn't do that. But in the anime, the Death Stinger was gigantic. It was super, and nothing the cast had to throw at it was working. They chucked it in a volcano once, and that still didn't work.
Oh dear.
So it wasn't multiplying, but it also was just this gigantic.
They just couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah,
like
and it was piloted by a psychopath.
Like a cockroach in the wall. You can crunch it 10 different ways, and it still comes back 10 different times.
Yeah, even worse though, because the pilot was a giggling psychopath. At least when the cockroach comes back to life, it doesn't sneer and monologue at you.
You know what? That's fair. I'll concede you on that one. And then the third one they introduced with the second wave of the OG in 2024 was Gojulas at 07, who was characterized by its dinosaur-like appearance. It excels at powerful combat, utilizing its robust body. Even when attacked, it rallies. It rallies, and its destructive march continues until it has bitten and trampled everything in its path.
Yes. So
the kit that they gave Gojulas was Revenge Hammer, Revenge Claw, Disaster, and Hostility. Now, the Revenge moves, it was kind of similar to Blade Liger back in the first run of the OG, where essentially once it falls under a certain amount of HP, its damage goes up tremendously and gains an extra effect. So right from start, Gojulas kind of made himself abundantly clear as a retaliation DPS, something that wasn't really meant to be used right from turn 1, but you had to control how much damage it took before it would actually make itself an absolute threat. Disaster was a melee attack that, when attacking an enemy, had kind of 2 different conditions. It served as a conventional melee attack normally, but it also had a chance of instantly breaking the part in question if they were in a certain phase, if they were in their heating phase, and it would alternate between either condition depending on which one was met first. The leg ability of Hostility also buffed all of its leg abilities every time it's attacked the first 5 turns of battle.
Wow.
So what is the history on Gojulas?
So, the Gojulas, that's an old, very old design. I think, like, this thing was rolling out, I want to say, like, maybe a year or two after Human showed up on Z, and it was just the Republic's big, bad Godzilla monster. It doesn't have a mouth beam like Death Sword does, but it's big, it's beefy, and it can, if anything gets close to it, it just rips to pieces with the big claws and the big chompy teeth. So it was just tearing through Empire forces in its day. Eventually, it did kind of fall by the wayside. It's still like a very reliable unit, but like as time went on, things like the Death Sword made it obsolete.
More efficient, more powerful, more mobile.
So they started doing what they did in the alt skin here. They would add cannons to it to give it some more range, you know, keep it useful, but
gotcha.
It's just an old school, and as you can see, it's supposed to be a T-Rex, so that's how old it is.
Right, I get it. And honestly, I really liked how they did Gojulas' design. Like, obviously, the source material was really strong, but I kind of wished I could have justified going after him a little bit more when he first came around, because the design is really cool. But again, with the way they designed the revenge style designs, he isn't really all that strong at the start of the fight, because you have to let him take a couple of blows without it breaking him first, and then you have to keep him as close to death as possible in order for him to actually have that high DPS output. Otherwise, he's just kind of there.
I see. Oh, and that black and red skin is a specific Gojulus. That one appeared at the end of the first season of Zoid's Chaotic Century, and it was a special unit made for Irvine, which he only used once.
Interesting. So it just kind of a 1-star show, and then it just never saw the light of day again.
I think it might have been a reference, because in the battle story lore, Irvine also gets a Gojulus, but it's Gojulus the Ogre, the tan, deserty one. And I guess they just wanted him to be in a Gojulus here too, so they made him a black and red one.
Probably. But still, it's really nice how they translate all the models like that too, even with just the cosmetic skins. Now,
that's fantastic.
Now, obviously, when they reran it, they didn't really change the pro tags all that much. They brought the original 2 back with Azuma and Kohaku, but they added the adult form of Ikki Tenryo as a third Medarot that players could collect. So what's the story on this new one that was added?
So that is the outfit worn by Irvine. He wears the same outfit in both the battle story and the Chaotic Century anime. Although his headband is more of a salmon color rather than this nice Bardock red we've got going on here. It's a lot of people are when they first hop into the Zoids anime. Usually when he shows up, they're like, "Wow, he's hot. Why is he dressed like that?" I'm like, look, it's fashion.
Yeah, don't really question it. It's anime. Don't question it.
Though is funny. He has the eye patch in. He's appeared in the Zoids battle story, the Zoids Chaotic Century anime, and the Zoids Chaotic Century manga. In the battle story, we don't know if there's anything wrong with his eye at all. We don't see him mention it. He never takes the eye patch off. In the anime, in the second season, he actually does take the eye patch off, and his eye is completely fine. It's basically an iPhone. It has zoom, it has projection, it has it's just a cool eye patch.
So what you're telling me is he's secretly a Chuny, and just doesn't admit it.
Kinda, but in his defense, in the Zoids Chaotic Century manga, there actually is something wrong with his eye. He was an orphan, and he grew up stealing and things he wasn't proud of. But he crossed the mafia, and they didn't like that, so they burned his eye out with a cigar.
I see.
And as he was laying there in pain in a dirty alley, some weird, crazy scientist happened to stumble across him, and he thought, you know, what would be a fun thing is I found this dying wild Zoid next to you. I'm gonna pull its eye out, stick it in your skull, and see what happens.
Oh, lovely. That imagine turned out nicely.
I mean, it turned out it works. He can see out of it. He's a little perturbed that there's a Zoid eye in his skull, but he's like, hey, that was kind of neat. I'm gonna leave now. Bro, what did you do that for? I don't know. I wanted to see if it worked.
Because anime, that's why. They had to drive the plot somehow.
I'm like, so there is something, in one of the 3 universes he showed up in, there is something at least confirmed wrong with his eye in one of them.
That's fair. That's 100% valid, because clearly enough people asked the question, and they had to go back and figure out, okay, so what's the story here?
Right? It's fine. It's cool character design. I like eye patches on
Oh yeah.
characters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%. Now, this was the tail end of where they ended with the OG Zoids in 2024, but at this point after Medarot Day 2024, they had another surprise, and we thought that was going to kind of be the end of the Zoids collab, and it just kind of carry back on it with business as per usual. But apparently Imagineer decided that wasn't the tail end of it, because as a second half, or second phase essentially, to the Zoids collab that year, they gave us New Century, with two brand new models officially going live the same time that they reran the new ones from the OG and the new ones from the second wave. So obviously we have ZSZ Liger Zero and 01B Fuhrer. Liger Zero was equipped with Fight Full Charge, Beam Claw, Emit Blade, with biped legs and G control. Essentially, much like Shield Liger was, and even the original Beast Liger, he's an extremely self-synergetic energy battery. He can completely cap his energy up all the way, but the difference is he had a fight boost effect that boosted melee damage once he had it activated. The Beam Claw essentially boosted from this massive boon in energy that he gained, gets a damage plus, but also has a scatter effect, so it'll hit multiple parts at once. Emit Blade consumes a small amount of charge, but doubles its damage and gains piercing anytime that it's used. Obviously cannot be used if you have no charge. And the leg ability of G Control meant upon maintaining a certain Metaforce threshold or higher, he had S rank on every terrain across the board. So what are your thoughts overall on how they translated the Liger Zero here as we crest into New Century?
So that makes a lot of sense. So this thing has had two major appearances. In the original battle story lore, the Liger Zero is a new model Empire Zoid. They had the idea to use very undomesticated wild Zoids in this case, so that the cores would be very feral and animalistic and very untamed, hoping they'd just be just ravenous in battle. And the idea was that the unit could be stripped down entirely and re-equipped with different armor sets, or the CAS system we see in the anime.
So kind of like a modular Zoid.
Yeah, so like you could swap out the parts in like a really quick time frame. You could strip it down and re-equip it, and then send it back on the battlefield without spending days or maybe a week tearing apart a whole Zoid, putting it back together a different way.
Gotcha.
This one could be stripped down on the fly. And then it also did appear in the Zoids New Century Zero anime, where it's piloted by our hobo Bit Cloud, and he ends up working for the Blitz team at a sports team. And
Interesting.
That one is particularly weird. It's said to have some variant of the organoid system that doesn't work like the older one, but I guess it just kind of makes it smarter and learn things really fast.
Gotcha. And its flavor text also reads specifically, a Medarot designed from mysterious data called ZSZ. It's characterized by its lion-like appearance with a majestic white body and mane-like parts that evoke the King of Beasts. It excels at wild combat, slashing its opponents with its sharp claws. So I guess that kind of ties back to what you were saying with using more feral Zoids cores when they were assembling these.
Yeah, because at the time in the battle story, they were using a different style of organoid system that just kind of agitated the Zoid core to try and keep it violent and very powerful, which worked, but seemed to cause long-term problems for the Zoid and the pilot. They figured if they could just have a super feral cat and make a robot out of it, you don't need to agitate the core. It's already mad.
Yeah, it's already angry. It's a cat, so you don't have to do much to it anyway.
Yeah, like this will work. It did. It just turns out the reason it's kind of expensive. So
I can imagine that. And the second model they introduced in the first wave of New Century is ZSZ-01B Fuhrer, who is characterized by its dinosaur-like appearance. This machine wields massive arm-like parts with great skill, unleashing high-powered projectiles to pierce opponents. Despite being a dragon, it's said to possess demonic combat power. It was equipped with Emit Shot, Railgun, Big Bang, Wheeled Legs, and Auto Charge. Emit Shot is basically just the shooting version of Liger Zero's Emit Blade, so consumes a large amount of charge and then gets a massive damage bonus if it does. Railgun is basically just a free defense-ignoring shooting attack with no real added perks to it beyond that, so very conventional, very well-rounded if you need it for anything. Big Bang was very unique, though, in the sense that it had a very interesting condition where if you attacked an enemy that had full HP on the part that you were damaging, it had an upwards of 75% chance to instantly break it, period. No questions asked. But the trade-off is if you attack something that already was damaged and was not at 100% HP, Big Bang instead healed the part for the damage you would have dealt instead. So what are your thoughts on how they translated Be Fewer here?
That's pretty interesting. So the Berserk Fury was actually they translated it to Berserk Fury in the West because I guess they didn't want to use Führer.
I could kind of see that.
So in the original lore, Berserk Fury was developed alongside the Liger Zero in the same base. It was the same basic concept, as you can strip it down and you can re-equip it on the fly.
And a Feral Core.
A Feral Core. But this one ended up being, they didn't end up using the CAS function of this nearly as much as Liger Zero because its base armor was just so all-around good. There wasn't much need.
It was already good in all facets. Why upgrade what's already working?
It doesn't get used very often. It was originally piloted in the battle story lore by Emperor Wolf Maroa, and in the Zoids New Century anime, it was piloted by a weird little munchkin called Vega Obscura, who was a prodigy pilot used by a black market gambling guys. They like to rig Zoids battles and make them more dangerous. People possibly get killed for more money.
I mean, hey, if you have giant, mechanical animals like this that can be fitted with military-grade weapons, why not go create some death games for people to participate in? Because if the money pool's high enough, people will participate. What could possibly go wrong?
I assume the breaking the part in one shot is a reference to New Century Zero, because in that one, not only does the Zoid have one charged particle cannon in its mouth, like a Genosaur, but in the anime they gave it 3. They gave one on each of those egg beaters on its back. So that might be in reference to that. Is that it was crazy powerful in the anime that it had 3 charged particle guns at the same time.
Right. And what's actually cool is that they actually animated, well, not exactly animated, but there actually is an open and a closed version of these on the actual model that are used and are alternated when Be Fewer takes his turn.
Oh, that's cool.
So I really like how they did that too with the extra mile. Now, when they introduced this one as well, they introduced 2 brand new Medarotters as well with the next wave, featuring Arase and Iku. So they kind of gave them some chance at some alternate skins again. So what's the history behind these particular 2 pro tags?
So, yes, the one in red, that is the outfit worn by one BitCloud from Zoid's New Century Zero. He's our hobo, our protagonist. He ends up working for the Blitz team. Well, at first he's asked, but then he's more along the lines of contractually obligated because he doesn't read things. But, yeah, he's just like, the team owner's like, hey, you want some stuff for your Liger? Sign here. And it's like, all right, cool.
I bet. I didn't realize I signed a military draft.
Yeah, you didn't. You're always supposed to read contracts before you blindly sign them.
Yeah, that's 100% fair.
And he's pretty fun. Like he's just really having a good time. It's a sports anime, so he doesn't have to be like super serious military guy. The stakes are very low. People are having fun most of the time.
Yeah, obviously. And what about Iku here? What was the?
Yeah, fit on the right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is that's worn by Vega Obscura, the Berserk Fury pilot. I think the vest is supposed to be like helping him sync up with the Berserk Fury because they are still running various tests on it. They didn't build the Liger Zero or the Berserk Fury in that anime. They just found them.
Okay.
They're not actually sure who made them, so they're still the Backdraft Dreams are still running tests on the Berserk Fury to see how it functions and how well it'll do.
Right. So they kind of designed like a haptic vest that kind of recorded interactions and stimuli so that they could study it later.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of goofy looking though, in my opinion. Definitely not a high up on my list of favorite Zoids outfits.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine that. But that kind of wrapped up the 2024 run of the Zoids collabs, and then for a pretty hot minute, we actually didn't hear anything else about Zoids for a while until just the last few weeks ago when they reran all the Zoids collabs again, one after the other, all at once, minus Wild Zero, obviously. But they introduced 3 brand new forms for Liger Zero to bring back into New Century just this year, including ZSZ-02 Liger ZS, Liger Schneider, 03 Liger Zero Panzer, and then they introduced the Jaeger the Jaeger style skin for Liger Zero as a cosmetic skin. So if you were able to go back and collect Schneider and Panzer, if you had Liger Zero, you could technically use all 3 in the same team.
Wow.
Now, the way they set them up, Liger Schneider was set up with Beam Slash, Laser Sword, Beam Claw, with biped legs and the leg ability of Sparkle. So he was set up as your optic-oriented DPS. So anything that had a certain charge or higher, he'd get massive damage bonuses from that. Beam Slash meant, however, he targeted the closest enemy to him, period. Did not matter who it was or where they were. Whoever was closest was the one that got whacked. Laser Sword was essentially a defense-ignoring optic skill, so whoever he attacked would get an extraordinarily painful sword attack. Beam Claw essentially is the same thing, but as a scatter, so it'll hit multiple parts at once. And Sparkle, it actually works very similarly to how they did with D-Sting and Compression. So, much like D-Sting was a gravity shill, they made Schneider an optic shill, where Sparkle would give him a massive damage boost to optic skills on his next turn when activated. So, what are the overall thoughts with how they introduced the alternative modes? Now, you mentioned with Zoo Sentry they were going to use the Liger Zero and the Buster Fury as modulars, where they could have like different armor sets to kind of change up how they behaved in battle. And I'm assuming the Schneider and the Panzer were kind of in that same vein.
Yes, exactly. The point of the Liger Zero was that you could just strip it down to its naked form and then re-equip it with armor and weapons to fit the situation you needed at hand.
Gotcha.
The Schneider armor was essentially an armor set built from the data of the Blade Liger. They thought everything that was making the Blade Liger great. Blade Liger was equipped with, well, obviously laser blades. Those work well. It has an energy shield. It has thrusters, so it's faster than the base Liger Zero. The only real drawback with Liger Zero Schneider was that it only had the chest-mounted shot cannon. So it was extremely close range. Like you could get a smidge of mid with the cannon, but that's about it. It was all melee. And because it actually has 7 blades instead of 2, it really has a short runtime. You can only be running around with this thing for a short amount of time.
Gotcha.
But it's heavily melee focused.
Well, that would check out too, especially since you said 7 blades. It actually has the one on each arm, and it actually has 5 on the head. It has the 2 smaller ones on the torso, and then the 3 other also on the head. And they actually coded that animation in when you actually use that part in battle, where it actually would open up the blades on the chest when using Beam Slash.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, alongside Schneider, we had Liger Zero Panzer with Missile Cannon, Range Missile, Range Napalm, and the leg ability of Bomber. So, much like Liger Schneider was the shill for optic DPS, Liger Panzer was basically the shill for gunpowder-oriented DPS. Now, compared to Gravity or Optic, which typically had their own different specs relative to energy charge, Gunpowder instead typically had its best shill in the sense that it was a sure hit and you could use it very reliably. Didn't really have any added perks, no extra effects. It was simply just a bomb or missile that went boom when it landed down. Missile Cannon, and actually Missile Cannon was a brand new skill that Panzer also introduced to the game as well through this collab. Essentially, it's a gunpowder skill that dealt bonus damage if it broke something with its attack, but then inflicted 2 stacks of a fire damage over time effect that remained unless they were removed. Range Missile and Range Napalm, however, were very interesting moves that had completely different conditions depending on how close or how far away the target was from Liger Panzer. They ranged from higher damage or higher success rate up close to higher damage or higher success versus targets far away. And Range Napalm, I believe, also had a sure crit on it as well, so it was always going to be painful no matter how you choose to use it. And then the leg ability of Bomber also gave it bonus damage anytime it used a gunpowder skill. No activations necessary, no needing a turn to charge, it's just if you are using a gunpowder skill, have some extra bonus just because.
Sounds about right. Panzer was, in the original lore, it was basically considered the best of the Republic armor sets for Liger Zero. It had big cannons, it had missiles all over the place, and it was still, I think it was only a few kilometers per hour slower than the base Liger Zero. So it was still fairly quick and nimble, and it just had anything you could need to get rid of Zoids its own size or smaller. And in the anime, they realized that, we can't have that. We can't just have one CAS be just better than all the other ones.
Right.
Objectively, because then why would we ever use anything else? Like, all right, so in the anime, they made Panzer even more powerful. They're just a walking mega bomb.
Right.
It's more of a statue of a mega bomb. It can't walk. It's so overloaded with thick armor and weapons that in the anime, it
extremely heavy.
They just drop it off on the side, have it fire its weapons, and then dump the armor because that's.
That checks out too, because
fun.
they actually made Liger Panzer triple heavy, so it had completely maxed out on the weight, and of course was weak to anything that had a gravity attribute attack to it, if you were able to get that close.
Yep, that's definitely a reference to that. They actually tried to explain why that was a thing, or at least Kotobukiya did when they were releasing the model kit for this, because they did little snippets of their own lore, trying to tie different universes together to varying degrees, which was weird. And they're just saying, oh no, it's not that. It's just this Panzer is super heavy because when the team owner was making this armor, he based it on data from the old Helic Republic days, but he couldn't find the same materials, so his ended up stupid heavy.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's a cute little.
Gotcha. And the flavor text for it also read, actually go back and read Schneider's as well. It says, for Schneider, with its lion-like appearance, it boasts a vibrant orange body and multiple blade-like parts mounted all over. It excels at relentless combat, cornering opponents with optical-based melee attacks. With Panzer, it reads, with its lion-like appearance, a green body that blends into its surroundings, and a massive cannon-like part, it excels at combat that combines high firepower and mobility by utilizing a variety of gunpowder-based ranged attacks. Now, something else a friend of mine actually mentioned as far as, putting all this together and figuring it out is allegedly the Liger Zero did not like the Panzer armor at all. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the anime anyway. BitCloud specific Liger Zero did not like the Panzer. It was too heavy. It would make the Zoid get hot. It was just essentially putting like a giant weighted jacket on your cat. It was.
That's kind of fair.
Get it off. Actually, it was a really cute scene. Is that after they first use it and they unload everything, they jettison the armor in the field, and the cat, it does super cat-like motions. It stretches, it shakes, and it's like it's super cute.
I think I might have seen that manga frame floating around every now and then, and I think I bookmarked it somewhere. I might have to go looking for it. But yeah, honestly, that would check out. Trading mobility for high artillery like that. And then what's the story with the Jaeger? Now, obviously, they portrayed the Jaeger as a paid alt skin for the Liger Zero, so it doesn't have any special skills all to its own. It's just an alternative design that you can use if you're using Liger Zero. But what's the story with the Jaeger?
Well, I guess this one kind of lines up a bit more with the original lore, because in the battle story lore, the Jaeger is an armor set, but it's only a little bit faster than Schneider and the basic Liger Zero. It does have those big ion boosters, make it go faster, but the only thing that makes it really useful is it has a few extra sensors, and it has a couple little Vulcans on its nose to deal with small little things, but it's really mostly supposed to be a scout.
Gotcha.
But in the anime, they tried to make Jaeger more useful by making its speed crazy fast.
High armor, no armor, high agility and mobility.
Yeah, because otherwise it'd be like, it'd be the opposite of Panzer. Like, this thing's so, like, nobody's going to go around in a sports anime, like, sniffing around for things. But no, we need to make this thing way cooler because it's kind of boring.
Right. Gotcha. Now, that was the first way that we got in the first week of this collab, but just a few weeks ago with kind of tying back into New Century. But they also brought back the original two, Odyssey and Iku from the second run, but they also introduced Ibuki with a new alt skin to join the fray. So what's the story behind her?
So she is wearing the pilot suit of Lena Toros of the Blitz team. She's the team owner's daughter. She is clearly the spoiled child of a single dad who gave her everything she ever wanted. She's horribly hot-headed, actually quite funny. I don't know why she dresses like that in battle. She does have casual, normal clothes she wears for most of the anime, but when she pilots her gun sniper, she puts on this magical girl pilot suit. It's certainly a look. Maybe I don't know anything about fashion, but this is a lot.
I mean, I have to say that with the hot-headed temper does kind of line up, because the character profile for Ibuki does state clearly that one of her nicknames in school is the Hurricane.
Yeah, I can see why they would pick her to wear Lena's outfit then. Yes.
That would definitely check out. So it's honestly really nice they go back and tie all that together. But that was just the first wave, like I said. And they introduced a new wave every week over the course of this collab as they kind of carried it to completion. The second wave of the collaboration introduced Fusors with a new alt style for Liger and a new alt style for the Buster Fury. With this one, they introduced ZFZ0 Liger PX and 01 Buster F. So, what's the story behind behind Fusors?
So, Fusers is again it was coinciding with the battle story at the time, but this seems to be RD's. This seems to be the anime specific one because in the battle story, Liger Zero Phoenix is blue, but in the anime it's red. So in the anime, they're just kind of going through. I think it's set after the battle story sometime, and the idea is that some Zoids can fuse with each other to essentially double their output.
Okay.
And in this case, Liger Zero Phoenix is not only more powerful than a regular Liger Zero, but it can also fly. It's got the Magneser wings and got cannons on its shoulders now. This was in the battle story just like a Helix Republic military decision that you could link some Zoids together to give them certain benefits, but it was kind of hit and miss because it works, it gets you some really powerful units, but on the other side you're essentially taking all the time and materials to make 2 Zoids and then just shoving them into one.
Right.
You're wasting a lot of time and resources to do this, even if it's good results.
Now, to read the flavor text for both of these, for Liger PX, or Phoenix Liger as I translated it, it's mysterious Medarot design from mysterious data called ZFZ. It resembles a lion with a fiery red body and wings, and sharp claw-like parts. It excels in versatile combat, using a combination of ranged and melee attacks with various effects. It came equipped with Hypercharge Missile, CGU Claw, Smash Claw, and then biped legs with Adapter. Now, Adapter we've already kind of explained up to this point. It's essentially there is no terrain incompatibility because you're good basically anywhere, but Phoenix Liger introduced a couple of brand new skills with him as well. Hypercharge Missile is just basically just a energy charged missile, so you consumed a small amount of charge, you got some extra damage out of it. I believe it also ignores defense to make it just a little bit more painful to separate it from other gunpowder skills. CGU Claw, or translated as Charge Upper Claw, is a scatter type melee attack that buffed the user with the Charge Upper effect to self, which essentially, once that effect kicked in, increased the amount of charge you gained from any action by 30%. So essentially kind of fed back into Hypercharge Missile. And Smash Claw had 2 different conditions relative to how you used it. If you caught a foe that was facing toward you and heating, it behaved as, I believe it behaved as a hammer attack, or as a standard claw attack where it hit multiple parts at once. Whereas if the enemy was facing away from Phoenix Liger, it behaved as an AoE and damaged all their parts instead. So does that translate in particular to how the Phoenix Liger behaved, or was this kind of a one-off?
I mean, a bit. It still did use the traditional strike laser claw if it could get in range, but it also, being fused the way it was, the Fire Phoenix legs now became shoulder cannons. If I recall correctly, the wings were actually lined with little guns. So, like, if it couldn't get, or it wasn't a good idea to get close with the strike laser claw, it could do more aerial bombardment. Do more AOE effects instead of getting up close and personal.
Gotcha. And then the other one they introduced with the second wave was 01 Buster F. With its dinosaur-like appearance and wing-like parts, it can fly freely through the air, outmaneuvering its opponents. It can switch between high-powered ranged attacks and highly mobile melee attacks, depending on the situation. It came equipped with Desolation, Sway Claw, Drill, Flight Legs, and the leg ability of Stub. Now to explain, Desolation was essentially kind of like Disaster and Terminate, but with a charge requirement to it. So it required a certain amount of charge to use, but it behaved either as a double damage and piercing attack, or it behaved as an insta-destroy, depending on which condition came first. Sway Claw is a scatter attack that gained bonus damage relative to the user's evade stat on their legs. So the higher their evade, the more dodgy they were, the more powerful it was. It's a relatively new skill that was added just a few weeks ago, actually. Drill is a melee attack that auto-targeted whoever was closest to the user, but had a damage plus if it successfully broke something on the enemy during its skill, and also had a 1-turn cooldown. And then Stub also gave it an extra perk, I believe, when successfully dodging enemies or breaking things.
Gee.
So what's the story behind Buster Fury's new friend here?
So the Buster Fury, actually, I don't think it appeared in the original lore at all. I think it might have gotten like a mention, but it didn't appear. So it was just a strictly, it pretty much all in the Fusers anime where this thing was. I assume the drill is a reference to the fact that the drills that Berserk Fury uses, even without Buster Eagle attached to it, are called Magneser drills, and they were based off Mad Thunder, which were designed to just drill and pierce through even the thickest armor of like the Death Sword or anything. So
Gotcha.
Super strong drills.
That would check out.
And now that it's fused with the Buster Eagle, it can fly like Zero Phoenix can, and I assume it's the drills are also lasers, so I assume the more AoE attacks are just firing everything it has.
Basically. What honestly made it rather interesting is the fact that with them changing it to flight legs, the model itself actually looks hilariously clunky. Like they literally took the beefier model from the New Century, modified it slightly, slapped the eagle on the top of it, took the wheels off its heels, and called it a day. So it looks hilariously clunky when it's moving, and I can show that to you later. But it is still really interesting how they picked these two to kind of represent Fusors in this respect.
I will say that's actually spot on. I would say Buster Fury is usually one of people's least favorite Fuserzoids because that's how it looks in the show and IRL models.
Oh, so this is legitimately how it looks.
The eagle just sits on Berserk Fury. Like with Liger Zero Phoenix, armor parts are swapped out, but like it's not how Buster Fury. They just took the eagle and basically sit it on its back.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, this is.
Wow. I was staring at it last night, going, man, they made this thing like so hilariously clunky. Like, was that just like an artistic rendition or approach? And like, no, clearly it was intentional.
That's just how it looks. It's not a great Fuser look. I mean, it's cool, but it's
but it's
on the back of a T-Rex.
Yeah, basically, you can just imagine that as far as it goes. We got two new. Yeah, we got two new Metarotters again. This time with Tenma and Ryoma. Now, neither of these were actually considered as rivals in Medarot 9 when they were first introduced. They were actually both classmates. I believe Ryoma was an upperclassman of Tenma when he first enrolled. But what's the history behind their outfits?
So the one in blue, that is RD's outfit from Zoids Fusers. He's our protagonist, our Liger Zero pilot. It's similar to New Century, where they're mostly doing battles for sports reasons, but it seems they also that sports teams in this universe also have a duty to go around and like solve problems like wild and stray Zoid attacks, or so they're basically using these guys as a
heroes for hire.
Force. Yeah, and I would say. I like RD's character design. I just don't like the way they drew him in the anime. He looks skinny. It's a weird, but it's a nice outfit. The blue jacket and all.
He's it looks really
fun guy. I feel like if Fusers had better management, I think people would like RD a lot more.
Gotcha.
And then the one on the right, this is Blake's outfit from Fusers. Blake was extremely angry rival type. He does not like RG at all. He frequently attempts to defeat him, but in ways that would likely get him killed. And I don't think he's too concerned if he dies or not. It's like, if he dies, he dies. He's also voiced by Zex Marquise from Gundam Wing, except he's allowed to scream even more.
Obviously.
There's a lot of anger. He pilots the Berserk Fury in the beginning, but then swaps it out for the newer model gear, Yuki later.
Gotcha. Gotta love it.
He doesn't wear the hat.
Yeah, that's part of Ryoma's character. He's kind of the topless hat there. It's a really nice look for him, though, honestly.
Yeah.
But that was what we got in the second week of the collaboration, and then the final week, as we wrap things up through this week, actually they split it into 2 weeks. Was Genesis, where they introduced two final models to kind of round out the series, and they released them 1 week after the other, with ZGS-0 Murasame L and ZGS-01 BM Raptor. Starting with Murasame Liger, it reads, a Medarot designed from mysterious data called ZGS. Its appearance resembles a lion, and it's characterized by a part on its back that resembles a Japanese sword. It excels at increasing its mobility to close in on opponents and cutting them down with a single lightning-fast strike. So what are your thoughts overall on Murasame Liger? What's the whole premise with Genesis compared to the others?
So Genesis it has no connection to the original, or it was its own thing.
Gotcha.
It seems to be set after some kind of disaster on Planet Z, possibly a second disaster, and people aren't manufacturing combat Zoids anymore. They're just going in the oceans or going in mountains, and they're digging up old ones and kind of reviving them.
Okay.
And just using those. So nobody's like, there's not like active militaries that are manufacturing Zoids anymore. If you manage to find one of these things and get it working, you can sell it for a lot. You can use it for yourself, which is, but
If you found it, finders keepers.
yeah. And I kind of appreciate that there's the two colors. If I recall correctly, this is kind of a thing that's been going around since the Blu-ray releases. Is that I think the model kit for Murasame Liger was blue. But the anime had it a more green color. I don't
like
know
a
if
turquoise.
this was actually just a shading error.
I was actually about to ask you about that because I was staring at it ever since they first released it last week, and they said, okay, there's got to be a story behind the darker blue version when it's physically the only thing, the only difference between the models. But if it's kind of like a release like that, like you said, like just a version difference, I could kind of see that.
Ever since Kotobukiya made one for the Blu-ray release, and then I think they did it for the AZ version as well as Tomi's. It'll come with blue and more accurate anime greenish. I don't know if it was a rendering error or why there's two different shades of it at all, because it doesn't appear like in other media. It's just the one.
Gotcha. Okay, I could kind of see that though. I could see it. Now, Murasame L was also equipped with Quick Sword, Range Claw, Range Pile, Biped Legs, and a new leg ability of Sonic Move. Now, essentially, Range Claw and Range Pile kind of work similarly to like Range Missile and Range Napalm with Panzer, where they had different effects relative to the target's proximity to Murasame Liger when he attacked. But Quick Sword was a brand new attack that was introduced with him that basically added the user's mobility 1-to-1 to power when attacking, had a piercing damage bonus if you broke something, and also ignored defense on top of that. Then, to synergize with it, Sonic Move tied in where if you were not attacked in your heating phase at all, either somebody covered for you or you were just that fast, it buffed your mobility for your next action.
Oh.
So essentially, it is the definition of the high-speed DPS, and I'm assuming that is 100% in character for the Murasame Liger?
I assume that's a reference to it, the pile bunkers on its legs. That's a unique feature that this Liger has that other ones didn't, is that it had the pile bunkers just attached to the back of its ankle so that it could dig in to the ground and quickly whip itself around.
I could see that, yeah. Kind of high agility and kind of being able to turn on a dime like that.
Yeah.
I could see that. Very, very nice. And then this last week, or last week at time of recording, they introduced 01 BM Raptor, who reads, with its dinosaur-like appearance, it unleashes hellish flames that can melt opponents' armor and easily slice through them with powerful claws. It possesses high resistance to certain attacks and, depending on the user's skill, can exert enough power to drastically change the course of battle. Now, prior to us recording, I know you and I have already had conversations on my thoughts with BM Raptor, but just to kind of explain it for the sake of the video again, it was equipped with a completely new set of skills across the board. These have never been seen before on anything else up to this point, and they will be new skills added to the game going forward. Shockfire is a shooting attack that is guaranteed to crit no matter what and set the foe on fire with a fire DOT. So they'll take damage over time the longer the ailment's allowed to stay in effect. Guard Claw will boost the user's resistance stats by 50% for until one action is taken if the attack lands. Lock Claw inflicts a status that prevents the target from dodging or defending until it's removed, guaranteeing every hit lands and every hit will be critical no matter what. But then comes the leg ability of Element Co, which has been a very interesting and controversial take ever since it was actually dropped. Simply explained, it reduces the damage from optic, gravity, and gunpowder skills by 90%, so you take only 10% intended damage no matter what from anything of those attribute attacks. In trade, you take triple damage from literally everything else. So, what are your thoughts overall? I know you and I's conversation said that was kind of par for the course with the Bio-Mega Raptors, but kind of go into more detail on that. What was kind of the history behind the BM Raptors?
So the Biozoids in general, but the Bio-Mega Raptors were kind of the main thing, is that in Genesis there was one growing empire. They called the Degald Empire, and they were slowly growing in power because somehow they were actually manufacturing combat zoids, the Biozoids. No one was quite sure how, but they were doing it, and they would frequently feature flamethrowers. I assume because they would go into towns and they would set them on fire. I assume the reason they went with flamethrowers is because if they came across other combat Zoids, they could burn them and most likely incinerate the pilot while still being able to drag the combat Zoid back to the Gald Empire for other uses.
That would check out.
Yeah, people don't do well with fire, but you know.
Oh yeah, obviously.
And they're coated in what's called hell armor, which is resistant, which is almost completely impervious to beam weapons and steel and regular projectiles. It basically just bounces right off them. And the only thing that you could do to get rid of these things, specifically, was use weapons made of metal Z, a special space metal, which is really hard to come by, but that's what the sword on Murasame Liger's back is made out of, so
Gotcha.
it's super useful for getting rid of these things.
Gotcha.
Although I will say, the whole thing with Genesis is a rebellion kind of anime, but it seems like none of the rebellion forces were really thinking outside the box too much. And like, just because the armor is super hard doesn't mean you couldn't stomp them into the ground.
Yeah.
Or, you could use
it's
other
like a
ways.
magic.
You don't have to.
It's like a magic force field, you know. Yeah, of course you'll reflect most of the projectiles coming at you, but that's not going to stop the berserker from cratering you in the floor.
Right, like you can. There's other ways to get rid of these things, but yeah, they really wanted to hype up the Metal Z and like the Murasame Liger being a big thing, and
Right.
yeah, it was kind of. I assume that's what the reference is with the element code, is that it's immune to
Oh yeah.
most normal things, but
Right.
it
And
sounds like it wasn't implemented all that well.
oh no, I mean that's where the controversy is, because technically, according to you, they actually kept it in character, which is great, because I love they go that extra mile to make sure that everything matches up and is sound. I get that, but the problem is just with the way the gameplay system and game mechanics for Medarot S handle. It's unfortunately unless you have somebody covering for BM Raptor, like as a shielder or a healer. Unfortunately, he's going to end up turning more into a liability than an asset, and that kind of is his biggest flaw there. What I did really like, though, after some more research was found, and then you confirmed it as well, was the alt skin they released for him. You said it was the mass production model?
Yeah, which is still kind of baffling to me. Apparently, yeah, the purple one is called the Bio Megaraptor mass production version, but it appeared only in episode 30, I believe, of Genesis, and it was piloted by a captain, which makes me think that it's not the mass production model, because the other ones are mass produced, and this one clearly wasn't.
Right.
I don't know if it
So
was
what makes the difference here?
I don't know if there was a change in management direction midway through this thing or what, but it seems kind of backwards to call it the mass production version when I've seen one of them and I've seen hundreds of the other kind.
Right. So it kind of makes you wonder what's the difference here between them.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's all that different other than being kind of cooler looking.
Yeah. But then, of course, with this, we also had one last run of cosplay Medarotters, this time with Kasumi and Shiden from Medarot Navi. Now, in comparison to most other, rival friend characters between them, Kazumi was the main character that you play as in Medarot Navi, which was a very largely space-themed game. And Shiden was kind of your rich boy. He wasn't exactly your rival per se, because it wasn't like he didn't like Kazumi, but he was definitely not lacking for money. And most of the time, always tried to do what he can to stay with the trends of having the most upgraded version of whatever his partner was at the time. So with that being said, what's the history here between these two outfits?
So the one on the left, that is the outfit worn by Ruji, the Murasame Liger, and our protagonist of ZOIDS Genesis. He is a decently talented young man, I guess. He just kind of got roped into going to war because the Gald Empire invaded his village and set it on fire. And
oh, lovely.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I don't really want to go out to war and leave my village, but apparently these guys are gonna not knock this off, so I gotta go make them knock it off.
If they're not gonna do it, then I'll do it myself.
Yeah, he's very he has to learn. He finds himself a master along the way. He has to learn how to be a competent Zoid pilot, and along the way, a competent strategist, and begin leading different factions. He kind of comes into his own.
Gotcha.
And then the one on the right is I think it was Zarin. Is that his name? I believe it's Zarin. Yes, Zarin. Our rival of this one, he starts off piloting a Bio Megaraptor, but then swaps to Bio Volcano. Very angry young man, but he swaps to Ruji's side when he realizes just how evil the Degald Empire was. Like, I think he had an inkling, but he was willing to put it to the side to get his own, what he wanted out of it, until he started realizing that the Degald Empire was not powered by robot pilots, piloting a whole fleet of biomegaraptors. These were human souls trapped in these little machine bodies, being forced to pilot the raptors. He's like,
Gotcha.
oh, that's bad. Where's my friend? Oh no. He's like, well, time to switch sides.
Lovely. So, 2 words, character development.
Yeah, I love me a villain I love me a rival that switches sides. Like, it's fun.
Oh yeah, it definitely makes for some good writing too if it's done correctly, which is the big trick. And unfortunately, a lot of folks tend to kind of miss out on that part when they create a twist hero or a twist villain. Is you can do it, but there's got to be a certain level of finesse here if you want to pull it off properly.
It wasn't as bloody and, outright like we should probably have to change the age rating in the anime because it was just human soul harvesting. So, we didn't show anything graphic.
Right,
but it was
obviously.
still really, really dark that they were just harvesting the souls of their military and forcing them to do this.
Right. I getcha. But that basically does wrap up this tale, and actually the collaboration will be ending this week at time of recording, and everything will kind of go back down to business as per usual. But, yeah, as you see, we've had 4 different runs of Zoids between 5 different IPs in the same series as well, and like I said, half of them are lagers with what we have. So it's honestly just crazy how many different models and styles and types that they chose to go with from each generation, each IP. So looking at all the models now after having gone through all of them, not even like all the event stories and such like that, but just kind of how they translated it from Zoids into Medarot. What are your overall thoughts?
I'm really, like, some of these are so cute. I will say it's odd how some of them are just adorable, and then other ones are just the Zoids. Deathsaur looks like a Deathsaur. It doesn't look...
Yeah, it's literally just chibified Deathsaurus.
I am also appreciating, like, the references from the old stuff. Like, seeing the bloody Deathsaur in particular was really nice, because, like, that's, I mean, it's popular in the fandom, but it was, like, never in an anime. People don't know where it's from, and then seeing the Mirage Blade Lagger was not like there's some obscure stuff, and I love that.
Right, and that's what I was saying earlier. I love the fact that they went that extra mile with everything, just to kind of tie it back together and just make sure that a lot of the highlights of the series were included in just what little time or amount of assets they were able to pull together. So again, Wild Zero, the original Zoids, New Century, Fusers, Genesis, it's crazy how they were able to pull that off, either with references, with the part names, with the designs, the Medarot outfits. It's just really nice, and they've been able to do this with a whole bunch of different collaborations through the series too, not just with Zoids, but this is probably one of the most recurring. Actually, no, this is the most recurring if I think about it now, because this will be the 3rd or 4th run with Zoids that we've had in 6 years. So it's kind of crazy how many times that we've gone back to Zoids to kind of either bring back all the original models that they had run up to this point or introduce brand new ones.
I will say I'm kind of sad that Death Stinger didn't get an alternate skin of some kind.
Yeah, I really can't say why they do things they do or what they do. I'm unfortunately not part of that dev team, as much as I would absolutely love to be and have some kind of feedback on direction or translation or things like that. Especially with what I do with the Western community and kind of do what I can to at least keep people in the know. But I don't think that discussion will go anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately, unless I get some mysterious message in my inbox some morning and say, "Hey, we've noticed your stuff on YouTube." If they're watching this, I'd love to hear from you, please. Coming up my 5th anniversary sometime soon. That'd be a great anniversary gift. But no, honestly, it's still really fun to do what I do and just translate all that and keep everybody in the know. And I'm more than certain it's the same thing for you with Zoids and just kind of keeping people informed and kind of going over some of the lesser known bits of lore and history behind all the designs.
Well, yeah, you and I are doing the same thing. The Western presence of, like, they're still selling these things, and Western audiences get a hold of them, but the spam, the promotional material, it's not being done, so we have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I literally started, almost 5 years ago. I said, well, clearly nobody's done it yet, so if I don't do it, nobody will. And, well, I founded the MNN, going on 5 years now, coming June. And no, it's been a journey, but it's been a long going development and history, and it's been fun along the way with all the new stuff I've learned, all the different tips and tricks and people I've met through the years, and I hope to continue to use this platform to continue making new friends and new connections, and just kind of tie the world of Medarot back together with, you know, everyone from all sorts of different fandoms and walks of life. But no, it honestly was an absolute pleasure to have you with me here, Phobos, with going over all the different Zoids collabs and kind of getting some insight into that universe.
It's been a lot of fun. I love yammering about these things.
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate having you here. Like I said, to you know, taking some time out of your day to come yap with me on small pet robots, or in your case, giant pet robots, and just kind of what makes the universes so similar or different with each other. But with that, I am going to go ahead and just kind of start wrapping us up here as we kind of close off, because we're actually running just shy of about 2 hours now. Lots of enlightening discussion, which honestly just loved from start to finish. But as I do wrap us up here, just as some friendly reminders, if you would like to know more for any viewers on the Metabot side of things, or would like to learn more if you're just getting into it, you can also follow the Medarot News Network page or the Metabots Forever pages on Facebook that are ongoing and still very active in staying up to date with the news. There's a link to Project Rising Beetle's Discord as well present if you'd like to join there. You can also reach out to me or Phobos as well on Twitter, Blue Sky, Discord, whatever your social media platform of choice is, at Isagami Kura or Sir Phobos Boa 1. Phobos, I will say it again, it was an absolute pleasure and a treat to have you here on the MNN. Thank you so much for taking some time to come talk to me.
Oh, thank you.
And before I do officially say farewell, do you have any upcoming projects or announcements that you want to talk about or shine the spotlight on?
Yes, I am currently I'm in the middle of making a series called Zoid Species Breakdown, which is long-form Zoids content going over a particular species of Zoid, going over lore, model kits, anime releases, any other media it's been in. And I've done 3 episodes so far, and I'm in the middle of making episode 4, and I'm hoping to drop that before the end of the month. And then I will be debuting as a proper VTuber in May, and streaming hopefully a lot more consistently.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Well, whenever you do get the streaming officially up and running, do not hesitate to reach out to me and we can try to coordinate something. Would love to try to, you know, my DMs are always open on that. Do not hesitate to drop in and say hello or say, hey, I'm, you know, coordinating for this kind of game. Are you interested? Would love to try to make something happen.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, well, again, thank you so much, Phobos, for your time. I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up here if you don't mind hanging around just for a little bit longer while I close out here.
Fine with me.
All right, thank you again, Phobos, so much for that. And as I do wrap us up here officially, just as a friendly reminder for any that are still watching, hold on one second. Oh, there we go. Just as a friendly reminder for anyone that is currently watching and would like to know more, I am, you know, there always are the current ongoing projects in the Project Rising Beetle Discord server. We have the ongoing Ori Meta contest for original designs. We have constantly ongoing discussions for Medarot S and Meta Survivor that went global just a few weeks ago, actually, and still kind of getting its bearings overall on that. But once again, as always, I do appreciate you all for stopping in, just as you always do. And until next time, this is your host, Kura Isagami of the Medarot News Network, signing out.